Thank you for being here today as we turn our attention this day. Our scriptural text comes from the book of Exodus chapter 32, verse 1 through 4. Notice there these words. Now when the people saw that Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us gods that shall go before us. And as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And Aaron said to them, "Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." And so all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molded calf. And then they said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." I'm speaking today simply from the subject, on hold, hold on. On hold, hold on. Isn't it interesting here that the children of Israel were waiting on Moses? Moses had led them out of the land of Egypt. They're on their way to the promised land. They're at Mount Sinai. This is the place where it is called the mountain of God. And Moses is up on the mountain in the presence of God for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, we don't exactly know how many days into the time that Moses is in the presence of God, out of the sight of the people in the presence of God, before they became impatient. But all that we do know is that they became impatient. It was, probably 2 weeks. Because you know how we are as human beings. We get impatient, and it's like, girl, if you haven't heard from him in 2 weeks, he's probably moved on. 2 weeks. We don't exactly know. But we do know that Moses was there for a total of 40 days, and they said, he's probably not coming back. We don't know what has become of him. They couldn't wait 40 days. And they took the gold earrings out of their ears, gave them to Aaron. He fashioned a molded calf, a golden calf out of it. And then now they said, "This is the God that brought us out of Egypt." I mean, really? You just had this in your ears yesterday. God had delivered them by miracles. He parted the Red Sea for them. He had 3 days of lice, 3 days of flies, 3 days of wild locust that was swarming the land, 3 days of thick darkness. He turned water into blood for them. They saw that. They saw the death plague that the firstborn in every household died. And now you make gold that has come out of your earrings that you just took out of your ears and said, "This is the God who brought us out." Here's the message that I want us to get from Exodus chapter 32. It is simply this message that impatience is the breeding ground for idolatry. Impatience is the breeding ground for idolatry. Whenever we feel as though God is taking too long for something to happen, we prayed yesterday, we prayed last night that something would happen, and we put God on a time limit. That, you know what, I'm going to give you, Lord, until I'm 40. Lord, until I'm 30. I'm going to give you X amount of time. And we set our time limit. We set our time limit on him. And if he hasn't moved and manifested miraculously through our impatience, we end up doing the same thing that the children of Israel did, which is they took things into their own hands and made themselves God. Now they're going to play God because of their own impatience. They couldn't wait on God, so they made themselves God and fashioned their own God. And so it seems like whenever God is taking too long for us to send a spouse, to send the money, to send the contract, that we start wanting to play God ourselves to see how we can manipulate things to work in our own favor, instead of waiting on the Lord. And when we do like that, we are essentially making ourselves God. Sometimes idolatry is about worshiping some external image. Other times idolatry is about worshiping our own image. We would never consider ourselves as participating in idolatry, but yet our behavior is idolatrous. We don't recognize it because we would say, well, I would never take my gold and then make a god out of it and then bow down and worship something that I made with my own hand. But we do end up giving our allegiance to something that we create. We build our own vision. We build our own business. We build our own enterprise, our own organizations. We live our own dream. And there's nothing that we won't do to sacrifice for this dream, and that becomes idolatrous. It is where it becomes a work of saying, look what I did. I went to all of the right institutions. I hooked up with all of the right people. I made all of the right associations. I joined all of the right organizations. I crossed all of my T's and dotted all of my I's. Look what I have done because I was in the right place at the right time. I made it happen. I used the power of the law of attraction. And I brought these things into my own world. I brought them into my own world. You know what I call that? I call that ego. Ego is an acronym actually for edging God out. Edging God out. Where we think that we have done it ourselves and we have displaced the very God of the universe who made us. And now we are now trying to take his role and manipulate in our timing because we have become impatient in our own. And so we are partaking of forbidden fruit because of not having something our way and in our timing, not God's. And that becomes our idolatry. It is to have something our way in our timing and not God's. But God is not a God of time. God is a God of timing. Timing. The timing of the Lord is very critical. See, God has specific times that he wants to do particular things in the lives of his people. You know, Jesus just couldn't be born arbitrarily at any time. It had to be in the fullness of time. In the right times when the circumstances and the situations were ripe. Because think of this, if you are born out of your season, you will not be recognized for your genius. If you're born out of your season, there are certain things that thrive today. I mean, think about a tattoo artist today. They were not popular 50 years ago. They might have had a gift if you're born out of season. If you're born out of your season, to everything there is a time and a season for every purpose. You can't just make it happen. It has to be in the fullness of time when the circumstances and the situations of life have been arranged in such a way that it will reveal your genius. And some of you are tremendous ideas, but yet your time has not yet come. And in our impatience, we wonder, God, you've given me something, and I don't understand why the world is not beating a path to my door. It's because of timing. It's because of timing. And if we can wait on God, we won't try to do in our own flesh what God and God alone can do, because patience is the ability to wait until God changes the situation or you. Patience. It is the ability to wait until God changes the situation or you. You remember when Mary and Joseph, they had to flee down into Egypt because they were seeking the life of their child. They had to go there until that Pharaoh that was in Egypt died. But, you know, the one that issued the decree, they had to wait until he died. They had to wait until the right time. And sometimes you wonder why you can't do what you want to do right now. It's because the person who's in charge now is still in charge. And God is waiting until their season has ended. I mean, you don't want somebody trying to beat you out of your job when it's still your season. So you want to be able to do things in their proper timing, You see, the waiting season is a time to mature. It's a time to mature. One of the greatest curses to relationship is immaturity. I mean, it's total immaturity. If you ladies, if you marry a mama's boy, it's the greatest curse that you can be. I mean, it's the greatest curse you could have in your life to have a man who's a mama's boy, because he's the center of his own universe. And he's used to mama having to correct him. You don't want to marry somebody that you got to correct all the time. Somebody who is immature, who's the center of their own little universe, who is inconsiderate of how their actions affect other people who love them. That's immaturity. You know, it's not that God doesn't want you to have the fruit. He doesn't want you to have the fruit before the fruit is ripe. So the waiting period is a time for the fruit to ripen so that it can mature. If you pull a piece of fruit before the fruit is ripe, I mean like a green plum, it will lock your jaws. But if you let it hang in there, it'll turn red and sweetness will come. See, it's just about letting it hang in there. You've got to wait. You can't always have the fruit when you want it. The tree brings forth its fruit in its season. There's a time for it, and I don't care if you got a taste for watermelon in January. It's not the season, and if you do find a watermelon, it's not going to be the sweetest. I'm just telling you, the fruit is its sweetest when it has been harvested in its season. It's got to be in its season. And we become anxious to have something, and relationships, people in our lives, businesses, ideas, and it's before its season. You look crazy when you dress for a season, one season, and you're in another season. Can you imagine walking into the church, you know, on a day when it's 30 degrees outside and you've got on a halter top and flip-flops and some Daisy Dukes? Can you imagine if you were dressing in one season and yet it's another season? I mean, I realize that somebody's elevator doesn't go all of the way to the top where their cheese has slid off the crackers. Well, all the lights are on, but nobody's home. Well, they don't have all of their chairs at the dining room table. The elevator doesn't go all the way to the top. You can realize that when you know that it's burning up outside, and you'll see somebody pushing an empty grocery cart with different little things in it sometimes, and an overcoat, and a hat and a scarf, and they're dressed in the summertime as though it is winter, because you look crazy when you're dressed in one season when you're in fact in another season. That's why it is so important to know the season and the time where you are, and realize that sometimes God will have you to wait because the season of what you're wanting right now, the thing has not matured. And when you pull things before their season, instead of it being a blessing to you, it is a curse to you. So the waiting season is a time to be able to mature. Number two, it's a time to soften and to mellow. It's a time to soften and to mellow. It's a time to soften and mellow. So whenever you're waiting, it's sometimes just about softening and mellowing. I know that my mother told me that her father used to be a really, really hard guy. But by the time I was growing up, you know, he had softened and mellowed. I'm like, my grandfather's the sweetest man. He is such a nice guy. But my mother was afraid back in the earlier days. I didn't know him when he was 30 years old, but my mama knew him. And he didn't play then, you know, and these are folks that they took that funny kind of juice on the weekend. But it's amazing, people that were really stern and mean during their younger years, give it time. They have a tendency to soften and mellow over time. Here's another thing. The waiting season is a time to actually gain perspective. It helps us to gain perspective. This is very important, because oftentimes what God is waiting on is for us to gain the right kind of perspective. He's just waiting on us to gain the right perspective. I prayed for a particular individual to surrender their heart to Jesus Christ for 25 years. Now, that's a long time to me to be praying for one person. But one day, I finally saw that person come and give their heart to Jesus Christ, walk down the aisle of my church and surrender their hearts to Jesus Christ after praying for them for 25 years. It was the greatest day. It was a wonderful, wonderful joy in my heart. And I said, Lord, it took you 25 years to answer this. I said, why did it take you so long? He asked me, he said, long in whose eyes? And he was letting me know that 1,000 years is as a day to me. And a day is as 1,000 years. He says, it seemed like a long time to you, but it's just a watch in the night, because I'm looking from an eternal perspective. And you need to get an eternal perspective. You need to get a perspective bigger than just the time where you are right now. You need that perspective. There are certain things that children, you know, when they grow up in your house, you grow up as a child, and then your parents will say, turn the light off in there. Turn off the TV in here. Make sure when you finish turning on the faucet that you turn it all the way off. Because you realize the water dripping, that's costing you money. But you don't think about that until you become a parent. Now time has given you a new perspective. When you have to pay the bill, now you understand what your parents were talking about, and they walk through, and then they come in and they see an empty room and a light is on. And then now you flipping the light off now and making sure that you have turned this faucet all the way over here, because you are paying the bills now, and you understand now the perspective of the very parent that you didn't used to understand, and now you have become them. Because time has a way of giving you a different perspective of life. So it is not only a time to mature, it is not only a time to ripen and soften, mellow. It's not only a time to gain perspective, it is also a time to reflect. To reflect. Listen, when a child has done something wrong, inappropriate, or had unacceptable behavior, you put the child in timeout. Not just so that they can be in timeout. Timeout is a time and a place for the child to reflect on what they did. I want you to think about what you did, that these kinds of actions, this behavior is unacceptable in this household. This is unacceptable. I want you to reflect. I want you to know why you're in timeout. I don't want you to just do the time. I want the time to mature you in understanding, because reflection turns experience into insight. Reflection turns experience into insight. I want you to reflect on what you did. I want you to know that I'm not doing this because I'm mean. I'm not doing this because I don't like you. In fact, I'm doing it because I do like you. But I want you to reflect on your behavior and to understand that there are consequences to what you do. I want you to understand that when you spend your budget, your allowance, that you don't get any more until the next time. And so I want you to reflect on what you did wrong so that you can make better choices next time. I want this to happen in your life. So the waiting process is a time to reflect. It is not only a time to reflect, the waiting time is also a time to evaluate. Evaluate. Because you cannot make anything better that you're not willing to evaluate. You have to evaluate. You cannot improve your life, your business, your relationship, your ideas unless you evaluate how effective they are. You don't know whether an organization is doing well until you evaluate it. You can make nothing better that you've not given the time to evaluate. You have to evaluate what's working, what's not. What do we need more of? What do we need less of? What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing? What is it that we need to continue doing? What is it that we need to learn to do better? You have to be able to evaluate it. Then here's the next thing. Time is also a time to adjust, because you're wondering, God, while you're waiting here, what am I supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be maturing, mellowing, gaining perspective, reflecting, evaluating, adjusting. Once you reflect and once you evaluate things, make the adjustments. Make the adjustments. Adjust your attitude. Adjust your actions. Adjust your habits. And then learn. Time is a time of when you're waiting, it is a time to learn. There's something that you need to know for where you're going. You can't operate on the level where you're going as the level that you came from. So whenever you're promoted, you're in a new position of authority, of knowledge, and of responsibility. So you have to learn something. This is why you need to grow to the next level while you're still on the current level. You need to start acting like a manager, thinking like a supervisor, thinking like an owner while you're still an employee. Act like you own that business. Act like it were yours. Treat customers the way that you would treat them if you owned the business. And maybe then somebody over you will recognize leadership potential in you. And they will say, let's get this person because this person is already thinking like a leader. Show them your potential. You don't have to have a title in order to start thinking like a leader and bringing in ideas and making suggestions. Any fool can recognize a problem, but it's a wise person that can bring in 3 or 4 different options of solutions to be able to make something better. And realize, lay your hands on your chest right now and say, I'm an answer, I am an answer. I'm an answer, I'm a solution, I'm a solution. You have to start thinking of yourself. I am an answer. I'm a solution-oriented person. I am a person who's here that makes things better. I see something and I don't wait to be asked. I start working on a plan. I start coming up with some ideas and some suggestions to make things better. That's a real sign of a promotion. Start acting on the level where you want to be. If you start acting the way that you want to be, soon you'll be the way you act. Act like a leader and then you'll be a leader. But he that leadeth, who thinks that he leads and nobody follows, only takes a walk. The waiting season is a time to mature. It is a time to soften. It is a time to gain perspective. It is a time to reflect. It is a time to evaluate. It is a time to adjust. It is a time to learn. And it is also a time to grow. It's a time to grow. It's a growing time. The waiting time is a growing time. While you're waiting, while you're in school, it's a growing time. It's a learning time. It's an evaluating time. It's an adjusting time. It's a time to grow. This thing is not about what you do. It's about what you become in the process. It's about what you become in the process. There are too many people that want a particular thing, and then they start describing the ideal man that they want, the ideal woman that they want. What you have to ask yourself is this. All of the single people, raise your hand. All the single people. Oh, my goodness, I've got a word from God for you. Here's for the single people. Think about the kind of person that you want in your life. Think about them in elaborate detail. What texture of hair you want them to have. What color you want their eyes to be, their height to be. All of this kind of thing. Think in detail what kind of background you want them to come from. And then ask yourself this question. This ideal person that I want in my life, what kind of person would they be attracted to? And then work on becoming that. See, we put all of our emphasis on the other person, that this is what I want. But here's the deal. You don't draw what you want. You draw what you are. You attract what you are. You attract what you are. You never have to pursue that which you have the power to attract. You attract what you are. So you have to think about this dream person that you want in your life, and then think about what kind of person would this person be looking for? What kind of person are they looking for? Because they're looking for a certain kind of person too. They have standards. There's something that they're looking for. Work on becoming that. Once you become that, when they see you, they will recognize you. So the waiting period is a time to become. You're becoming in such a way that when they see me, you have to start asking yourself, God, help me to become the answer to a prayer that somebody is praying for me. I want to be that. Help me to become that answer, so that when they see me, they will recognize me and have no doubt in wondering whether I am that kind of person. They want a person with a certain kind of personality, with a certain kind of look, with a certain kind of health, with a certain kind of finances in order. Who wants to marry somebody that's so strung out in debt, you're looking for somebody to bail you out and your credit is all jacked up? No. You draw what you are. You draw what you are. Let me tell you this. I married my wife while she was still a student in school because she was on a full tuition scholarship. And not only was she still on a full tuition scholarship, she had extra money that was being given to her. So she had an overage of money. Homegirl was not in debt, and I was not in debt, and I was not looking for anybody in debt. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. You got to work on saying, God, help me to get out of debt so that I can, you see, there are too many folks that are strung out in debt that's waiting for somebody, Prince Charming, to show up and rescue them. No, you got to say, Lord, help me to get out of here so Prince Charming will recognize me. I want them to be able to recognize me. I want homegirl to be able to recognize that I am her good thing. You know, you have to be able to have that different perspective. It's a time to become, a time to become. And here's the deal, is that sometimes the thing that we are praying for is bigger than our character can handle. It is bigger than our character can handle, because your personality, your charisma, your talents, and your abilities can sometimes take you places that are bigger than you have the character to sustain. So it's not about just getting there, it's about staying there, and it takes character. Your abilities can get you there, but only your character can keep you there. So sometimes we're praying for stuff and God will put us in adverse circumstances to develop our character. To develop our character. Because let me tell you this, people will show you who they are by their humility when they have everything and by their patience when they have nothing. If you can watch people that have patience while they have nothing, it speaks tremendously of their character. Tremendously of their character. It's all about their perspective. You know, what kind of character does this person have? What kind of character does this person have? And I just pray that it just helps you to understand the magnitude of our God. But I say this to you. Don't let a divine delay be turned into a devilish disappointment. Because God's got a plan. Even though you may not understand it, trust Him. Even though you may not understand it, trust Him. God has a plan. God has a plan for you. And the question to you is, am I waiting on the answer or am I waiting on the Lord? Am I waiting on the answer or am I waiting on the Lord? See, our waiting should be God-oriented, not goal-oriented or gold-oriented. See, the children of Israel, theirs became gold-oriented. And so much of ours becomes gold-oriented. Gold-oriented. It's money-oriented. But let me just remind you of this. Money is not the thing that makes you happy. You have to have something that brings significance, meaning to your life. So when God has you in a holding pattern, and I tell you, there have been times that I've been on the airplane and I could look out of the window and see the airport where I was trying to land. But we were in a holding pattern. And I didn't understand. I was ready. I'm like, I've been on this plane. I've been sitting on the tarmac before we even took off. I'm ready to land. I'm ready to get off now. I want to get off of this thing now. But sometimes there are extenuating circumstances that you can't see as to why you need to be in a holding pattern. Sometimes there's a storm below. Sometimes there are gusts of wind and the plane says, we've got to circle. We've got to circle now because it's not safe to land right now. And so I've been up in the air sometimes a whole hour circling the city before I could land. I could look out of the window and see Atlanta, but I couldn't land. How frustrating is it to be able to see where you're supposed to be, but you can't land because you're in a holding pattern. But God's got a plan. Maybe He's trying to protect you. Maybe there is a reason that you honestly got there so late, because God was in the delay. He was avoiding an accident. You don't understand. And see, there you are with your lips stuck out saying, I'm ready to get off of this plane. I got to get out of here. I got places to go. I'm trying to beat Atlanta's traffic. I'm trying to get...
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.